on NQC Media Network. I want to show you guys something today. So, excuse me, we're going to break this down into parts. Real simple. First part, let's set up a simple scene. In other words, it's just going to basically be a backdrop, okay? The character's going to sit on the backdrop. We're going to set this up in the sense of it being a, what would be the right word? Okay, I don't know what it is. Do y'all hear that popping in the music? Because that's driving me. But, and we're going to set it up, the lighting, everything. We're going to set this up as an illustration to demonstrate how to create different looks for your illustrations when you're trying to just do an image, maybe a thumbnail or something for your character, maybe even a backdrop or something of the sort. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the camera on, and I tend to go over to the camera settings and go down to the camera, and on the presets over here, I tend to just do an RE 65. Okay. I tend to make it 65 on the focal length. All right. So for the sake of it, we're going to turn all of the good stuff on because we're doing this in Eevee. Okay, it can be done in cycles and whatever, but again, I tend to just use Eevee. All right, let's set this to 90. We're going to go roughly about that far. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my camera set. Okay, so I'll play with. All right. Okay, so I'll grab his eyes. All right, so I already know that if I can come in for this character, I know I can do this because he has a particular texture on him already. All right, and I'll set his eyes down so he's pretty much facing or looking at the camera. You see here, we can see he's somewhat looking at the camera. Okay, so now that's all we're gonna do, just for the sake of setting up a shot. So I'm not gonna do a whole lot. Now, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in an empty. I tend to use the plain axes, and then I'll just scale it down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it roughly towards the front of his face. Okay. So like right about right here, inside of the mouth, basically. Again, I'll apply that scale. All right. So now I'm going to rename it to depth. So this way we know that the camera can see it. We're going to go to depth of field. We're going to turn it on. I drop the depth. Boom. And then I'm going to make the f-stop 3.6. Now, this is me, even though on a Alari 65, Ari Alexia 65, the f-stop can go up to, I think that it comes with a default f-stop of like 2.8 or 2.9. All right. And lowest is 1.7, but it doesn't mean it can't go higher. I'm saying the bottom default. All right. So now, since that's set up, let's go into a render mode. Now, then this to get a lot of blur on the edges, even though towards the bottom we'll go that way. So let's hit F12. No, we're not gonna hit F12 yet. I'm sorry. Now I'm gonna go make a new collection. I'm gonna call it light. So we're gonna do 3 lights, and all 3 lights to be point lights. But the reason why I'm using area lights in this case is to create to get more area space, because I don't want any particular light going anywhere other than where I want it to go. So I'm gonna just go hit one. Give up here to the top, come up to the top. I'm just hitting G and moving it. I mean, you move it if you want to that way, but I'm just avoiding having any clipping issues. So what I'll do is now I'll go ahead and turn the rotation tool on and just find that and do this. Okay, so now same thing here. I'm gonna just I'll click it, hold shift. Okay, so now come into render view. We see that the light is not strong enough to give it too much, right? So what I'll do is I'll come over here. Of course, I'm gonna crank it up to 120, see what we can get. Okay, so I feel like that's a little too low. Let's go into our camera. Yeah, it's a little too low for me. So 240. Okay, now because we have distance and shadows, we're gonna turn those on. And then over here in the specular and diffuse, I'm gonna bring the diffuse down some. I still want that specular to be up, and I also want the volume because we're gonna add volume to this scene. Okay, so with that being said, we already have our first. So we're gonna rename this one to key underscore light. Okay, so now we have a key light. I usually just go key. I usually just type in key. Okay, so you can just make it a key light or whatever. Then I'll duplicate that by shift D and then resetting its position. Coming to the front, moving this one to the side, hitting 3. Okay, let me show you why. So now when we break loose on this, this is what I'm gonna do. Now this particular light, we're gonna go to the front. We're gonna bring this light up some. Okay, all right. Now this light's not going to have the same power. I'm going to give it a power of 20. So when we go back and sit here, what it did was break up some of that shadow, but I'm going to cut the diffuse and the specular down and the volume all the way off. I don't want it to influence my volume at all when I add. Okay, this is just to break up some of those harder shadows. Okay, this is how you get that sort of secondary bounce in Eevee. Okay, so we're going to rename that one Feel. So this is a Feel light. So my bad, I didn't save this where I was supposed to save this. I'm tripping. Let me go do that real quick. All right. Okay, so now the next thing we're gonna do, come back out again, and we're gonna duplicate that light once more. We're gonna reset it again. This time we're gonna come over to it. We're gonna get everything cranked back up except for the volume. We do not want it to be influenced. If we do, it's just like real small. So in this case, I might go 0.1 on it to let it do the volume. And remember, it's already set. We already have a default. So on this one, I'm gonna make it 2500. This one is going to be our rim light. So we're gonna rename it to rim. Okay. So now, because I already know this is gonna be my rim light, I'm gonna make it turn it on the negative, go sideways. I'm gonna put it behind it. Okay, so I tend to sometimes come up and then rotate it down, but because of its strict level, I'll come to the diffuse and bring it down some because I just wanted to rim him. In this case, I'm gonna get a green, okay, because this particular character is because of what he's in. Since he's doing like the dystopian thing, I just kind of want to have that particular look. It's kind of a green, kind of a bad situation. So the cube. Oh, I forgot the local is on. Let me undo that. Change the transform back to global. Okay, so I'm gonna hit G1Z, GZ1. Right. Come back out. I'm gonna hit S Shift Z. Make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm gonna just do the same thing again until we get to a certain volume where I'm kind of closing all my lights up. That rear light again, we know that it's not gonna grab much. Okay. All right, so now apply that scale. I'm going to rename this to vol for volume. Over here, I'm gonna go volume. Oh, thing. All right. I'm gonna remove that one and add. I'm going to down here and say no shadows. I'm gonna give it a principal volume and 0.01 for right now. And then for the sake of seeing it in the scene without having issues, because it will still show up later on when you go into solid view, we're gonna make it wire and turn the shadow off. So make it display as wire and not wireframe. Okay, so let's go back into our camera. So now we see our light is being influenced by, our volume is being influenced by our key light. So I'll go 0.3, and then over here, on the see how the rear light is starting to influence a little bit. So when I come over here, rim light, I take it back to 0. It does 0.3. So it influences a little bit. So what I want to do is come up some on it, and I'll just hold on. Let me do this instead. All right. What I did was hit RR, and this way, if I keep it out of the scene directly, then it doesn't influence it as much. All right. So key light is definitely influencing a lot, but I think I want to make this light a little bit bluish, just a little, not a lot. So I'll pull this saturation back some. There we go. Just don't forget to stay on, but we also don't have our backdrop yet. So I'm going to create a backdrop. So I'm gonna create a new collection because I don't want it in anything else. I'm just gonna say background. Okay. And then what I'll do is I tend to just bring in a cube. So bring a cube and come out. We're gonna go ahead and apply all transforms. All right. So I'm gonna go again, hit S for scale and then Shift Z. Right. Okay. So now I'm gonna apply this scale mode on it. Hit 3, and then I'm going to lift this up above everything else. I want it to be above the lights. Okay. Now, this time I'm going to click all of the top sides and that stuff. Okay. So I'll turn it off. Now, I know you say, well, that was kind of counterproductive. I'll tell you why. Because now when I hit B, all I did was just use that instead of trying to figure out how long I want it to be, et cetera, et cetera. So now I come in and move this particular piece I'm gonna move it forward so that it's not spilling too much on there. Okay, and I bring it down some. All right. Now you see how it's being influenced. This light is being influenced by. I'm sorry, the background is being influenced by light, right? So this is why I was saying I tend to use like spotlights or whatnot. So what I'll do for the sake of it, I'm gonna rename this here to backdrop. Right. Okay, so what happened is my rim light now will be a spotlight. So I'm going to turn it to a spotlight. So now we see that now we get our light directly where we want it. Okay, it's still this. I tend not to. It just depends on what I'm doing. So just like you saw, I just turned this to a spotlight. Boom, that's what we have now. Okay, so with that being said, we still get that same level. Now on the backdrop, I'm going to go and give it a texture. I'm just going to just call it the backdrop. All right, and I'm going to make that texture just black. Okay, now on the roughness, I'll go 0.85, and then on the specular 0.2, because I don't really want it to influence anything. And now when we hit F12, we get to see what our scene looks like. Okay, so we see that we got a little bit of this right here where everything kind of coming down towards him. We got a little bit of light shining on him, but it's a little dim on his left side here. So because now that light's coming from this side here, we get to we can concentrate that light now if we want. So what I'll do is I'll concentrate that light. So I'm gonna go over to my rim. And because now it is officially a spotlight, I can make this 25. Okay. All right. So now because I did that, let's go and just get a little bit more gritty with it. Okay. So I'll turn my gimbal back on. Right. Because I want it to influence a little bit more. So now we're going to turn the influence up a little bit more. All right. All right. Don't forget to save. Let's hit F12 again and see what we get. And boom. See, so now it creates this ambiance that where now you get to see the character in whatever light you're trying to create. Now let's just say you want to, so again, we'll just turn the backdrop. I'm gonna go over to, I'm gonna come out of full render. I'm gonna go over dynamic sky. You might have just fine. Okay. And then I'm gonna go over dynamic sky. Just want to click, and then I'll shoot over to it. But I also know that the changing cycles works in both. All right. So now if he has his own sun, we're gonna cut that off. But because I want it to be kind of dark, I'm gonna give it a darker blue, and then I'm gonna bring this down to 2.1. Now that's for the sky. Okay. So now the rear again, it's more of a reddish color. We're gonna give it the same sort of tinge. Okay. But I'm gonna go 0.2. Okay. Now. Excuse me, because the clouds are so perky, I'm gonna go 0.1. All right, now so now we have this like feeling of like things happening. So now I can put stuff in the backdrop behind him, but it creates a different feel. So now because the background changed to this more reddish color on our rim, so on the rim light, I'll just come over here, boom. So now you get this same thing. Don't forget to save, hit F12, and voila. So now you get this feeling of, okay, something's going on, something's about to happen. We can even take this further. Excuse me. You can do multiple things for your background, whatever it is. But let's go back to the background and let's turn off the backdrop, right? Okay. So we'll turn off the backdrop and I click this. So let's say, for instance, I wanted something else behind him, no matter what that something is, right? So, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's build a makeshift wall. So again, I'm going to cube. I'm going to allow the transforms, and on the Y, I'm going to hit scale. I'm going to go 3. Okay. So it's our makeshift wall. Then we'll apply scale. So I'm going to go in edit mode. Let's go back into plane. I'm sorry. Let's go back into why I just went blank. I went totally blank. Into solid view. Okay. Is I'll go into edit mode. I'll hit Control R and I will type in 6. Okay. And then I'll make on this right here. I'll go to the top of it. Okay. And then here on the bottom, I'll do another one. Okay. So, and then for the sake of it, no. For the sake of it, what I'll also do is right here is now when I come out of it, I'll go into and modifiers and go into wireframe. Okay. So I'll go boundary, relative, and then I'll crank it up a little bit because I want to have a little bit more thickness, and then I'll apply that because now when I go back in the edit mode, I just have that. All right, because it doesn't have anything extra on it. I mean, doesn't have a texture. We're going to create a texture. We're just going to say fence. All right, we'll just say fence. All right, and then what I'll do is just go metallic. On this, I'll go 0.25. I'll take the specular to 0.3, and then I'll make this darker by going to 0.6. No, 0.4. Okay. All right. So that's it. All right. Now let's go back in there. We have something behind him, and now that means also we got something else that you can actually pay attention to. Okay. So let's just say that he's in this dystopian world. So again, we'll go even further. I'll just name this fence. Again, this is just me just showing you all of the possibilities of things that you could possibly do. So I'm going to go to building tool. I'm going to go floor plan. I'm gonna make that floor plan 7 meters. Okay, I'm gonna go into edit mode, floors. I'm gonna get rid of the amount of thickness on the slab. I'm gonna go 2 floors, and then go into base mode. Click the front, hit door. I know for a fact that the door isn't tall enough. The door has to at least be 2.1. And then, oh, I know what happened. Never mind. Oh, let's fix that. I got a better idea. Okay, I'm gonna go because the size of the floor. Most buildings are 10 feet tall inside, so that's 3.048 meters. Okay, and then now when I click it, I can put the door on, and it'll be 2.1 meters, and the width will be 1.2 meters. Okay, so and then I'll give it an inset. I'll inset the depth a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so that's for that. And then on the window, I'll give it a height of 2 meters and a width of 1.3. And I'll put one on the other side also. And then up here, I'll grab this. No. I'll do the same thing. I'll put a window up here, but I'll make it 2 windows because we're not going to see the side. And then what I'll do is I'll extrude this, bring it in, push it down, grab the outside, hit E, escape, and then hit scale. Okay. So now when I hit the scale, we get almost nearly even scale. But hold on, wait a minute. I think I know it's wrong. Let me apply the scale. So now when okay. And I'll go Y on it so we can get a little bit more width on the Y side. All right. And boom. So let's say we want it to be kind of decrepit. So I'll go in, and of course the windows are going to be on thing. Shift G area. So we're going to select those windows. 1, 2. Assign. Click new. Go glass. Okay, most people say, well, I just put a glass on there. I'm like, or you can just go down here, hit 1 for transmission, and then 1.35 for the window for the index of refraction. Hold on, 0 on reflection. Well, no, I'll do 0.03 on the roughness, 0.1 on the, yeah. All right, and then for the base of the window, I'll just go all the way back on white. And that's for the glass, okay? So in the building itself, let's just hit it, Control I. Now we have the building selected, assign, and then I'll just go building. And then in doing so, I'll just make it a simple color like gray. So just say 3.2, no roughness, not a lot of it. Bring this out at a little metallic, and boom, there we go. Okay, so now because it's not very, very dark, okay, which I might just go ahead and make it very dark. All right, and then I just push it on back, which I think is weird. It's not selected. Okay, so now the fence is behind. It's behind the fence or whatnot. But what I'll do is just push back a little. Excuse me. So boom, there we go. So now we have like this makeshift thing behind them. We hit the button, and then you know what I'm saying. Like it's just little stuff like that that you can do. Something you can do just as simple as that. Even then, we know that there's no ground. Expand the plane, push it back a little bit, and I can just apply that scale, give it something new, and just call it grass. And of course, it's not going to be grass, but we're going to go into a very faint green color, no roughness, no specular, and then I'll just make that color really dark. And then when we go back into it, hit save, hit F12 and see what we get. Because now again, we're just trying to get something in the background where you're not being, So if I come up here and I slide back a little bit, we get to see those edges. I don't want to see those edges. So what I'll do is go into, we're going to go, and on the Y, I'll push it forward a little bit. Okay, there we go. and then hit F12. So again, this is just about just figuring out how you want to do your illustration. I mean, again, it could be way more complicated than this. I'm just showing you some of the simple tricks that you can use to put yourself in a position to create images that make it easier. And you can also use that in your own process when you're doing specific projects. Like for instance, if you're making a series or whatever you're doing, give this, make sure we can see what your intent is. Okay, so let's say if you want to use something has bloom or blur on it, it's the same thing. Is making sure that that thing is bright enough that it looks hot. So what you're really seeing on a fire is that white hotness in it. Or so it's the same thing when you have something. You say, well, I want it to still glow red. I'm like, yeah, but it's really going to start being white the brighter it gets. So it'll just be better to just have a red fringe around the edges of it. So think about it in that manner, and you see what happens. So with that being said, man, I hope this helps somebody. I hope that you got something from this, but nonetheless, more is coming because, hey, I just have to give you guys something. The further I go into this, the deeper I get into this, the more I realize that when we start doing this, we start out with this idea of what we want to see versus what it can look like. Do the thing you're doing, but don't forget that there is some way to do that where it stands out, and that's the objective. You don't want it to just look flat. You want it to poke out. Again, if we hit this, it's not flat. Now, I could just create this, put something in there and just make it look bright or whatnot and be done with it. It's a good example. If I was to just say this, to say keep volume in there, right? Turn all the lights off. So that means we got to turn off render 2. And I go up and I put a sunlight in here. Okay, so I tend to go 60 up. All right, and let's go back to render mode. Close this. Now the sunlight is in there. We got it, right? But because of the power of the sun, I tend to go to 20 because we know real sunlight is bright. Now it's actually be more like 400, but you get my point. So now when I do this, even if I do this at a low level, right? Say I do it like this. Okay. Yeah, right there, right? And let's say I even make it 1. I don't see the character. Like it's not standing out. There's nothing rimming him, nothing, whatever. This doesn't give a specific feeling. It's just a flat image. Even if I take it to 6, it's still a flat image. But when if I turn this off and then I turn all this other stuff on, all the other lights on, right? Okay, and then I run to subdue to a point, and the character stands out. So that's the objective that we're going for here. All right. So with that being said, man, nothing but love. Hope you look